This is the book panel. It's really wonderful to see so many of you turn out on a gorgeous, sunny, springish day, and we're really happy to have you all here. And thanks to the previous panels and the panelists, the moderators and the volunteers, everybody who's been involved in putting this together. So we have, I'm just going to introduce from here the people we have on this panel, which is book publishing. We have 2 editors and 1 literary agent. And the first editor to my immediate left is Carl Adamschick, who is the author of the poetry collections Saint Friend and Curses and Wishes. He's a winner of the 2011 Walt Whitman Award of the Academy of American Poets and the Oregon Book Award. Currently, he is translating Somersault from the Hebrew of Dan Pagis. He has taught creative writing at the Catlin Gable School, Lewis and Clark College in Portland, and the American International School in Vienna. His work has appeared in American Poetry Review, Narrative, Harvard Review, Missouri Review, Tin House, Beloit Poetry Journal, American Poet, Guernica. He is a founder and editor of Tavern Books in Portland, a nonprofit poetry press dedicated to poetry and the art of translation. And to his left is Meg Storey, also from Portland. She is an editor with Tin House Books and a copy editor at Tin House Magazine. She's done manuscript mentorships with participants of the Tin House summer and winter workshops. She also has published interviews that she has done with Edgar Carrot in Tin House and the novelist Sayed Kashua and graphic novelist Rutu Mudan in Words Without Borders. She has been a faculty member at the St. Petersburg Summer Literary Seminars and taught developmental editing in PSU's, Portland State University's publishing program. Good program. Denise Shannon on the end is a literary agent in New York. She started her own literary agency in 2002 and currently represents a broad range of fiction luminaries, including Lydia Davis, Francine Prose, Reef Larson, Kirsten Valdez-Quaid, Karen Russell, Gary Steingart, and our own Kevin Canty. Her clients hold a Pulitzer Prize, a National Book Award finalist medal, a Writing Writers Award, a MacArthur Award, among many other honors. She previously held positions at the Alfred A. Knopf and St. Martin's Presses and the Borchardt and ICM literary agencies. I'm Deirdre McNamer. I'm the moderator of the panel, and so we will get started as soon as I can get my microphone arranged over there.
We have one more. Oh.
Whoops. And give. I'll also be setting aside at least 15 minutes of this hour for Q&As, so be thinking of your burning questions for the end of this. All right, the first question I'd like to ask each of you is, when you were 22, what career did you envision for yourself? And then, what then was your path to the work that you do now? Denise, shall we start with you?
Sure. When I was in college, even earlier, I was interested in writing. I went to college. I thought, God, does it really make sense? Is this directly into it? Okay. That's okay. Anyway, I went to University of Texas at Austin because there were a lot of people there, and I just felt as though I don't like everyone, so I need a big group of people. Anyway, I started working for the university press there. I was always interested in book publishing and either being a writer or working with writers. So I worked at UT Press. It was my work-study job. And I thought, this is serious, and, these books should be published. They're works of scholarship. And I wondered if I should really go into, publishing in New York. Because it was a time when, there would be like talk about the non-book and all of the garbage that is published. And publishers were figuring out how to do that very, very well. But I did. I went to New York, and my first job was at Knopf. I was an assistant. I was an assistant in the subsidiary rights department, and I loved it. I just thought, oh, these are my people. Working in publishing, and then I just went on from there. Working at another press, St. Martin's Press, and then going, to work side by side with writers as in agencies, and that was really the biggest joy for me, because I was not, I didn't see myself as an editor, but I wanted to work very closely with writers. So that's how I began.
Thank you.
Okay, this is on, yeah. So I also don't like everybody, so that must be a requirement for working in publishing. So let's see, I'm trying to remember when I was 22. I graduated from college with a degree that was called an interdivisional major. It wasn't quite a double major, but half of it was in literature and half of it was in costume design. And I studied literature because my parents are both English teachers, so I grew up in a house where books were very important and talking about books was very important. But I did not want to follow in my parents' footsteps and be a teacher. So I studied literature, but I also studied theater because I was very drawn to theater as well. And after I graduated, I actually worked in theater for many years. I'd moved to Portland. I was working for the main theater company in Portland. And after about 4 or 5 seasons with them, I started to feel that I needed a change. There's not very much theater in Portland, just as there's not much publishing in Portland. And so there wasn't another job for me at another theater company. My options were pretty limited. So I thought, well, I'm either leaving Portland and going to work for another theater company, or I'm changing careers. So I decided to change careers. And because literature was in my background, and I did, I love talking about books with friends and such, I decided to try to pursue publishing as a career. And I did an internship with Tin House Magazine. At the time, it was just the magazine. The book's imprint was beginning. It started as an imprint of Bloomsbury, so it was based in New York. And then then what did I do? So I decided, sort of as Denise said, she'd found her people. I felt like long after I was 22 years old, I had finally figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up, and that editing was the perfect fit for me. I liked working in theater as well. That was a good job, but I finally felt like I had found my calling. And so I embarked on a freelance career. My thinking was that I would be a freelance copy editor, and that was something I could do from Portland. And I did that for about 2 years, and then the contract that Tin House had with Bloomsbury came to an end, and the owner of Tin House decided to create an independent book publishing company and have it based in Portland. And so I was hired on as an assistant, and as the company grew, my responsibilities grew, and I started acquiring books and became an editor. Yeah.
I think I don't know. I think if you would have asked me what I was going to do with my life when I was 22, I certainly wouldn't have an answer, or wouldn't have had an answer. I came to reading and writing really late, actually. It started right around that time, and I just became obsessed with reading. And I became obsessed with books and book culture, and just what that is, what that magic moment is when a book is actually published. And I started writing there, and I'm not really sure how I got there or how it's just become a lifestyle. Every time there's been a major decision in my life, I've sided towards art and books. And it's sort of, I don't know, when I was 22, if you asked me if I was going to have a book out, I would have thought that was crazy, let alone a poetry book. And then saying that I'm going to start a poetry press, 4 or 5 years after that, it seems pretty crazy. But I think that's how it started. I just began reading very seriously, and just kept choosing for the creative arts, I guess.
Thank you.
So my next question is, I think many of us, and probably most people in this audience, don't really know what a day in the life is for you all. And so I wondered if you could just briefly tell us what a fairly typical day is in terms of how many book manuscripts you're asked to look at. Denise, how many queries you get, how much FaceTime with authors, just how does it play out?
Well, as I tell people when I'm interviewing for a new assistant, there's no Groundhog Day, and I love that. And I said that once on Groundhog Day because I was interviewing, and I don't know, it was like my world's just going back and forth. You get thousands of emails these days, and the way we handle submissions is that we have a separate email address, which is submissions@DeniseShannonAgency.com. But some people also, my email address isn't a big secret, so people will also send it to me. So I have this inbox that's just a little crazy, and I can't quite get control of it. But what I'm most interested in, what I have to go to first, are clients. I'm really working for the clients, and serving them is my most important job. And then I definitely want to keep looking for new writers. I love representing someone from the beginning of their career and keep going with it, like as I have with Kevin Canty, and many others too. There's just so much excitement in the discovery of something you think is really good, and thinking the people on the publishing side who will appreciate it, care for it, bring it to even, to a nice success, or at least to a good readership, the potential that it has for a readership. And not every book is meant for everybody, I'm not looking for things that have to sell for a certain level of advance or have to reach a broad market. Sometimes it happens, and when it happens, that's great. So my average day, I come into the office, so there'll be some things to deal with. I have contracts to deal with that I have to look over. I have people, working on that in the office too. There could be any number of things. Sometimes you get in, it's, because of the time difference, you'll be hearing from, I'll be hearing from my co-agents because I, represent people for their foreign rights often. And so there'll be somebody asking a question or presenting an offer. Or having a contract that you need to deal with. There is, there's just any number of things that could come up. Some author could call and have a question about their royalty statement, so you're on the phone, you're pulling out that paperwork and going through it with them. I could have something, or sometimes a couple of things on submission. So you're hearing from people who don't like it at all, turned it down, or want more information. You're trying to figure out, how to strategize that and make sure, you don't, these days, if something doesn't sell or kind of move quickly, there's a feeling on the part of some editors that, oh, no one wants this, so I'm not going to pay any attention until something's happening. So they're waiting for you to either call them, for the agent to call them and say, I think I'm hearing from people about this, so if you want to, you should really take a look at it because, something may happen. There's kind of idea of a preempt. Sometimes one publisher will buy something by getting there first and saying, I want you to take it off the table, you know, what money would make that happen. I mean, I wish every day was that kind of day. But so yeah, you have reviews coming in. So we have, you know, so when reviews come in for authors, you need to alert, you know, the foreign co-agents, because you want them to know they're trying to sell these projects. You want to give them whatever you can give them to help them do that. It's just all over the map, really.
Yeah, I actually got a phone call last week, I think, from a high school student who needs to job shadow for a day, and I was like, you're going to be really bored. Like, I'm sure it sounds really exciting, but you're basically going to watch me email and read. And she was like, no, that's fine. I was like, okay. So yeah, like, you know, I'm in Portland, Oregon, so when I wake up, New York has already been working for 3 hours at least, and my mornings are usually getting through emails. Those could be queries from agents, could be an author, you know, working on a revision, wants to run something by me, has a question about something, is having a crisis, and you know, anything like that. So yeah, I sort of try to spend my mornings dealing with emails. We have a weekly production meeting. We don't have I'm very lucky. I talked to some editors who are at the bigger houses, and it sounds like they're just in meetings all the time. And I'm very lucky in that I have very few weekly meetings that I have to do. Production meeting, a reader meeting, and I go to the weekly editorial meeting for the magazine, although I'm not on the editorial side of the magazine. And then usually my afternoons are reserved either for editing if I have a manuscript that I'm working on, or reading. And I typically have at least 2 to 3 manuscripts that are in various stages. So I may have edits off to one author and copy edits to another author, and I'm working on a second round of edits with a third author, or I might be dealing with proofreading corrections, and copy edits have just come back from an author, so I'm having to clean up that file and get it ready for the designer, and I'm typing up editorial notes for a book I just bought. I may be spending the day putting together a pitch for my publisher to get approval to make an offer on a book. I might be having a phone conversation with an agent like Denise to make an offer. I might be getting news that I've gotten a book that I made an offer on, and then I'm jumping up and down and happy. Yeah, and I guess I am also lucky in that I have an office I can close the door to, and so I can work in my office. I can edit. People often ask, like, if I can actually edit in the office, and I can. I don't edit at home very often, but I do often take reading home. And there's this way in which, you know, sort of a typical day doesn't really ever end, you know? I mean, I check email sometimes at ridiculously late hours of the night. And sometimes I do, and an author in Toronto has sent me an email, and I'm like, why are you still awake? I should be asleep. But, you know, over the weekends, you know, it's nice. It's one of those jobs that if I'm reading a manuscript that I love, I'll take it home and read it over the weekend, you know? So work days are a little hard to pin down, I guess. Yeah.
Lots of things in a single day for both of you, and you.
Yeah, I think it's office work. It's a lot of emails. There's a lot of communication. I was sort of shocked. I think I thought I was going to. I thought I was making a different job for myself, but yeah, it's communication. I would say Tavern Books is a nonprofit, so I spend a good part of the day, a good portion of the day, looking for grants and trying to find and get money to publish the books, and then dealing with the authors and everything like that. And then there's a portion of the day that's just reading, searching for new manuscripts. And then the editing part, that's what I was shocked about. I was shocked about how it's actually a small percentage of the day. to actually make a book. You know, Tavern Books, we're a small entity, and we publish 6 books a year, and that you spend a lot of time with the book, but it's not hours and hours over months. It's intense editing work for a while, but that sort of communication and that sort of artistic thing that happens in the office is much smaller than I would have gauged starting, and it's a lot of. I mean, you're in an office and you're at a desk and you have a lot of papers to keep organized and keep shuffling and stuff like that. And as a writer, I think it's also true. I mean, I know that you're an agent, but a lot of poets don't have. The system isn't set up for poets basically don't have agents, so you have to be your own best secretary. So you just have to. It's just a sort of work that you have to do and stay organized, and I think that's pretty much what. I mean, I work maybe 6 hours a day, 6 hours a day, just I think probably with emails and communicating with everything and trying to get books actually physically printed and everything too.
And when do you write your poetry?
Well, whenever, like you know, in the evenings, just on the bus, taking a walk, whenever.
All right, so I have finished a novel, or I have finished a book of poetry. I think it's good. I think it's the best I can do. I think it's done. My friends who have read it think so too. So first, Denise, how might I get you interested in it? What should I do in
Well,
representing it?
right. So you're at that stage when you're looking for an agent.
Yes.
And it's true. Poets, it's harder to find representation. I did work at an agency. George Borchardt that represents John Ashbery and W.S. Merwin and Robert Bly. You know, so that level of poet can have representation, and there's a lot of stuff to do for those people. Permissions, and you know, there are lots of ways you can make money for someone who's had that number of books, and those requests for someone to reprint it in this way or that way. So what I do, what I would recommend people do in looking for an agent, it really make sure, of course, your book is really as fine as it can be. Figure out how to describe it in a way that works in a cover letter. That doesn't mean I don't want a synopsis. In fact, I don't really like synopses. Some people who are working with different genres, like a thriller genre, they may actually really want a synopsis as part of the submission. I think I think they're turgid to read, and it doesn't work as well with a more literary book in my view. So anything I say, of course, relates to my taste and the way I do things and what I'm interested in. But I think everybody would say that cover letter is extremely important. And we've other panels. You know, it's funny. The pitch is virtually is the cover letter. So you don't want to go on too long. You do want to. Know me if you're submitting to me, because if it sounds like, if it's a dear sir or madam kind of thing, it's just not gonna get through, I think. There should be no mistakes in it. That's a turnoff. But the description, you want to sound perhaps humble, and yet you might know that in publishing there's this comparison game. It's just inevitable. People want to know what it's like or what audience you might share. And the only, I think you want to make that as real as it can be. Think about those authors you feel you are, who's you're akin to in some way, and then find a way to say it. Like, in the way I build narrative, I'm hoping, I hope I might be considered like so and so. If you can find a nice way to phrase this, which doesn't make you sound, arrogant. Any publishing history I want to know about. Now, because I know how hard it is. I work with a lot of short story writers. I know how hard it is to publish short stories in literary journals, and web as well as, print. So any publication you have, I want to know about. It's going to catch my attention more if you say you've been published in the Paris Review or the New Yorker, obviously. But it isn't, it isn't essential. It's more, what is your story? Does it fit me? So, you'll do that research ahead of time to find those agents that you think are really suitable. I, will do something that's not really, that's a little out of my, usual areas sometimes if I'm really attracted to the work sentence by sentence, because I love beautiful writing. And I like to do something different, it's not like I'm looking for a new challenge. Every book is a challenge because each product is so different from another. Think about the agent and what they have to do to sell you and sell your work. They need to figure out how to talk about it with someone else. What the audience is for that. So you really and I do the same thing when I submit to editors. I work very carefully on those pitch letters. I think they're really important, and because some people might not get beyond the pitch, beyond my cover letter that attaches a manuscript. And so I realized that, and you're also helping them out. You're already telling them what they might use as their comparisons, because they have to do the same thing usually when they go into their acquiring process. I guess is that enough?
Yeah, one little mundane question. Email or post office?
I do email. I
Okay.
just prefer email. I don't want a manuscript usually, but I have guidelines on my website, and it will say just send your query. But in fact, the real truth is you can send a little sample, because it is, if I'm interested in something, I kind of want to just start reading a little bit to see what I think and what the quality of the writing is. And if that's there, but it's easy for me just to go through to submissions very quickly, and it's usually my assistant who's really vetting them, because I just want certain sentences that really appeal to me. So if that's not there, I can quit reading after page 5. And other, if you're writing in a different genre, then it takes longer to assess, how you've built the narrative, how fast it is, whatever those elements of that genre might be.
Thank you. So Meg, I want this book published by Tin House.
Mm-hmm.
So do I need an agent? Need an agent?
Our official policy is that we don't accept manuscripts that don't have an agent or that haven't been solicited by us. There are exceptions to that rule. If an author whose work I know and I respect emails me and says, I have a student I think is really good, would you read his or her manuscript? I'm going to say yes. I published a book. I have a friend who lives in Portland, and our friendship, and she's a writer, but I had never read any of her writing. Our friendship and our careers were completely separate, and we were not super close friends. I guess it's probably fair to say we were acquaintances. And she emailed me. She had an agent. They had amicably parted ways on this manuscript that she was trying to sell. And so we were emailing, and I sort of asked, what's happening with it. And she said, I'm going to send it out on my own, and this is who I'm going to send it to. And I thought about asking you, and then I thought that I wouldn't do that to you. And I was like, why not? Everybody else does. And I bought it. I really liked it, and it needed a lot of work, and she actually did a revision before I bought it, but I bought it. So there are definitely exceptions to the rule. But if I get an email out of the blue from someone I don't know, chances are my response is going to be, I'm sorry, we don't accept unagented or unsolicited manuscripts, just because I have too much reading as it is. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And so, Carl, I want my book of poetry published by you.
Yeah.
What do I do?
you just send it. um, we have guidelines. It's pretty straightforward. I like this notion though. A lot of times, you look at publishers of poetry and they're just send a manuscript or we'll read the manuscript, and we like a little description of the book, and I find that important. I actually don't really read it until I'm quite a ways into a book and I'm already engaged with it. But I like that. I like the stories that surround a book and how people talk about books, and I think that's really good for like just a marketing or sort of just a social life of the book. If you have a very abstract, non-narrative poetry collection, and people have a hard time talking about it. They can't stand around at a party and talk about your book because they don't have the language for it. So I like a book description. I like knowing what the artist views their art as and what they think it's doing. So I think that's important. But mostly, I would read samples. A lot of times for translations, we'll look at 10, 15 pages of translations to see if that author or poet wants to continue translating. But mostly we just look at books. So as soon as you have like 45 pages of poems, you should send it to us.
Thank you. So in about 1 minute or two, I'm going to turn it over to questions from the audience, but I just wanted to get a little abstract for a moment myself and ask each of you, and this might not even be a fair question because it is rather abstract and broad, but apart from the impressive windfalls of money involved in both fiction and poetry, why should anyone in this day and age write fiction or poetry?
Because you can't do anything else. I think that's the best reason. It's just like if you can't stop yourself from doing it, you probably should be doing it, or it'll be worth it for you to do it. I'm saying that, I say that, but then, of course, everyone should have a day job, I think.
I thought day job might come in here.
Yeah.
Okay. Meg?
Yeah, I mean, what Denise said, because you love it. I mean, I'm not a writer, so it's very easy for me to say this, but I say it all the time. I don't think the goal should be to be published. I mean, not in like that is the only thing. I mean, you should be writing because you love to write, and getting published bonus. So it's a celebration, absolutely, but you should be doing it because you can't not do it. That's right? Double negative. Okay.
Makes it positive. Yeah, Carl.
I think that's true. What's that the Stevie Wonder song? He says music is its own reward, and I think that's true all around for arts.
Thanks very much. So questions from the audience? We have people running around with mics. There's one right there.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've heard that, I've read in Writer's Digest that, Writer's Market, that a new first novelist should not submit a book that is more than 90,000 words. Am I handicapping myself with a novel, contemporary women's fiction set in Western Montana, of 115,000?
Is that to me? No, I don't think that's a problem. I mean, these are guidelines, and rules are meant to be broken. But they're trying to tell you what publishers are really comfortable with, and a shorter or tidier length book is going to be more welcome than a super long book, unless it's brilliant. It's just inversely proportional.
Is 115,000 a super long book?
No, not at all.
How does market versus quality work? So, for example, someone submits to you, you read it, and you go, "Holy shit! This is like the discovery of Confederacy of Dunces. This is a magnificent book." but it has a plot and well-defined characters, and in this market won't sell. It would sell really well in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, but people aren't writing books like this anymore, so I can't publish it. Does that ever come up? Because a lot of contemporary fiction I read, it's almost like unless you have, three characters, one with MS, one transgendered, and all three of them wondering about their emotional experiences looking out the window at the countryside as they're driving to their estranged mother's homes. I'm like, you're not going to get published. I'm sorry. You have a narrative, and this is a post-narrative environment.
You're too cynical to be a writer. No, I think no. I'm everybody's different, and every agent will be different, and every editor will be different in terms of how they feel about that. I definitely do. Here's my problem: is if I take someone on, I feel as though I'm saying I can do something for you. And I want to be able to sell it somewhere. And so sometimes I'll have that conversation with writers, which is, I really like your book. What do you wish to happen here? And if they say, well, I think it has to go to a really top-notch house, like for our Strauss or Knopf or whatever, and if I harbor the feeling that it will be tough there and it will probably go to a smaller press, I'm not in the business to make people unhappy, you know what I mean? So I want to find that I'm on the same page with someone rather than, I don't want to make a wild, well, I won't make a wild promise that, I think it's impossible. It's not that I won't try, but I think it's good to be, in my, just to wake up in the morning and look at myself in the mirror to, to have that kind of relationship with my authors. So there definitely are books that seem like, wow, that would be the kind of book that really would have sold well 20 years ago, and now, or 50 years ago, and now it's going to seem a little old-fashioned. So the family saga, it depends, I mean, I think there are fewer of certain kinds of books, like a family saga or something that may be very fine, very literary. Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. And yet, I think, quality, can win the day. So.
Meg, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I wonder, you mentioned that you pitch books to people in the office.
Yeah.
What do those look like, and how much do you talk about marketing in those meetings?
So in order to buy a book, I need to have the support of our marketing person, who actually used to work for Denise. She's
Yes.
fabulous. Her name is Nancy, and because she needs to feel that she can market this book, that she can talk about it with booksellers, with our distributor, and a lot of things help with that. A pitch from an agent, a description from an author. The more we can figure out how we're going to talk about the book, especially in my case, because I tend to buy very weird books that are, as Denise knows, it's a little hard to do the elevator pitch. So I am looking, if it's an author who's been published before, I am looking at the BookScan numbers. If you guys don't know, BookScan tracks book sales. How much does it, because we are a smaller press, I have a lot more leeway, actually. I can do weirder things. There's not as much pressure on me as there are on the editors at big houses to have a bestseller, to have, this runaway hit. It would be great if it happened, but, so it's not, I definitely want comp titles. I want to be able to say this book is similar to, maybe not Grapes of Wrath, because that might be setting the bar a little too high, but, something recent and that did well. Comparing author style to another author definitely helps, especially because when I'm pitching it to our publisher, the publisher has not read the manuscript. After I give the pitch, he might want to, but he's is basing his decision on my pitch to him. So I really have to be able to talk about the book in a way that shows him how excited I am about it, that I have the support of Nancy and other staff members, and yeah. And also it helps because we are small and our budget is small. If there are any sort of immediate, unusual marketing things we might do for a book, like there's another way to get to readers than the sort of traditional routes. I think that's becoming more and more.
Author's platform.
Yeah, which doesn't have to necessarily mean Twitter and Facebook. And I mean, I have authors who don't do any social media, but something that we're going to get the attention of booksellers in a way. We're gonna capture their attention because they're getting so many books that we need our book to stand out in some way. So, did I answer that question? Yeah.
The panel that was up here before, they said something about she or he had sent something in, and the editor took off their name. How is that different from books? If like someone was to send in a book, can they take off the name and put someone else's name on or whatever? How, like copyright or whatever.
Not sure.
I don't understand that question.
So, yeah, basically how.
Oh, no. I can't imagine that would happen.
No, I can't either. Yeah. I mean, the only instance I can think of when that's come up is we've done one nonfiction book that we bought on proposal, and before the book came out, I asked the author if I could use his proposal in the class I was teaching in developmental editing at PSU, and it was just very important to him that the students not have the actual file. He was fine with them having a printout and reading about what the book was about, but he didn't want them to have a Word document, I guess, because maybe then they could steal the idea. I don't know. There's.
You're from a newspaper editor to a book editor, the difference. Like, how would they be able to change the name on that, but not on a book?
Like, what guarantee do they have? They send it to you. You don't say, write this name out, put my name in, money in my pocket. That kind of.
Well, I think with nonfiction proposals, someone could send in a proposal. It could be a fantastic idea. An agent could get it and say, wow, that would be a good idea for my client who's looking for an idea. That kind of thing. Usually it wouldn't happen because you're submitting it. So that's probably going to sell to someone. So, having a project that's already out there. What I find out, sometimes you send out a proposal and someone says, someone else has already pitched this like a month ago. And then you almost want to encourage the author to try something else because there's that other book in the pipeline, But so there's some kind of idea, that can be, but it should be the way it's done, even though competition is important with nonfiction books. So if somebody else has kind of just done it, or, you talk about these are the books that are out, they're going to be next to yours on the bookstore shelf. So you have to consider that stuff. But I don't know if that answers does that answer your? Okay.
Oh, sorry. Go. Do you want to go ahead? Okay.
How about titles? If you have a novel and you have various titles, if an agent gets it, would they feel turned off if it was vague on the titling?
Yeah, you should have a title on it, and it doesn't have to be the final title, and that's something that changes a lot, what it's titled. You go with what you think is best. If your agent would probably, if you have multiple titles and want to discuss it with your agent, that's, and have other ideas, they might pick what they think is the best one, or consult with you. It's always the author who decides these things, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I think people. When you send your book, it's not done. It's not finished. You're just getting started, and that's the whole editorial process. So there's so many decisions, and you can send a book that is, you can think of it as finished, and you can think of it as complete, but there's still lots of work to do on it, and lots changes from when there's an acceptance or a purchase or whatever to the actual publication. The books have a way of changing quite a bit.
So I was just going to ask you to expand a little bit on your expectations of authors, where there might have been a time where they could be fairly invisible and just write. But now, whether that's book tours and speaking and social media and platforms, and to dovetail on that, if you could highlight the characteristics of your dreamy clients and your nightmare clients.
That's great. I don't. Kevin is like the model client, actually, sweetest guy you'd ever meet, and almost gets after himself if he doesn't feel he's productive or whatever. But there's some people I talk to almost every day. So it's really nice to like your client, and have a good personal relationship, because I understand it's not easy being that person. Locked in the dark room. Well, maybe not dark room, but that'd be a different kind of client. But just they're writing for 4 or 5 hours or more a day. It's not easy to be that person. So I expect there might be some anxiety and some need to, and being that kind of, having that good bedside manner. Of course, that's relative. I'm good with some, what I mean? There's some clients I think, it works very well, and others who are a little harder, to make, kind of help them give up whatever they're worried about, or move on, and deal with rejection. That's tough. There are some people who call and they moan and groan. Oh my God, this means I haven't. Nobody wants this book. You know what I mean? Should I give up or whatever? And that's when I say, what else are you going to do? Like, do this because it's worth doing, and if you feel, I don't want you to give up, I believe in you, but you have to make that decision for yourself, right? But nightmare client, I don't know.
Well, like, I mean, on one way I understand that is, like, I don't care one way or the other, but like, I do look, I appreciate it when somebody goes out there and works for their book. We sit around and we support their book all day long and send it to contests and try to get reviews, and we're there for the book. And some authors don't do anything. And that's okay, but then some of them are a little arrogant about how they don't do anything. And it's a little troubling. And then on the other spectrum, on the other side of that, you have somebody that goes out and gives readings and really talks up their book and subsequently sells a bunch more, and that's really appealing. Even though I don't really care if somebody wants to be quiet, but it actually does make a difference. I don't know if you have.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think that maybe what I'll speak to is more working with a writer editorially. It's important to me that a writer is open-minded. My editorial notes are suggestions, and I hope I'm never telling a writer, you must do this. But if I ask a writer to try something, I hope that they'll try it. Or if I ask them to address an issue, I hope they'll address it. So communication is important to me. And let's see, patience, we're busy, so it's helpful if an author is patient and gracious and appreciative. And I'm very lucky in that I haven't ever had, knock on some wood fast, a nightmare author. I do tend to have, I've noticed, I have sort of a cycle that I go through with each book, where I, usually in the copy editing, kind of finalizing the file stage, I start to feel a little impatient, but I move through it, and it's always, it's usually ends up, I've had very, very wonderful relationships. I think because I work at a smaller press and I do fewer books, I really get to know my authors. I mean, I really have personal relationships with them as much as I can over email, and then I've met almost all of them, which is really nice. Yeah.
I did think of one more thing, which is, sometimes when you're in the publishing process and publishers, really want to own the cover for the most part. And the cover may not be,
Yeah, the
the
cover.
author's dream cover.
Yeah.
And it's one of the biggest sales tools, that a
Yeah.
publisher has. And even in the age of internet, retailing, it's still something that's there that represents and it does its job. So I do counsel, I want to, so I want everybody to be happy, but I think, I would recommend to authors sometimes that they defer to a publisher's judgment on that kind of thing.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Because I have an author who's really, really upset with me.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't like her cover. And I feel bad about that because I want my author to be happy. But I can't, Nancy, our marketing person, she put her foot down and
Yeah.
and that's hard. It's a difficult position to be in when you have an author who's unhappy with something. And
Well, authors will do their own survey among friends and really come up with what is, to them the best cover, and everybody agrees. And not that these people don't count; they count because they're supporting the author, but they don't really count. It's really got to be one of the ways a publisher, gets his or her way.
That's all the time that we have. So thank you.